I asked, why is that budget going up? And what I was told is the funds that are going to Azerbaijan are for democracy programs. And those programs, I think, would be useful for Azerbaijan. And I think that if our democracy programs in Azerbaijan, got some traction, I think that would be good for the region, including for Armenia. You haven't raised, but I'll just proactively address the issue of assistance to, increased assistance to the Azeri military. The reason the administration put in that request is that we have a number of programs with Azerbaijan dealing with our interests in the Caspian. Those are counterproliferation, counter-narcotics, and counter-terrorism programs that we believe are important. So, as we move forward with the budget requests, one subcommittee obviously has sort of zeroed out that the administration's request in the respect that we've been talking about. So we'll have to see, what happens as we move forward. But if history is a guide, I think Congress will probably act.
We're over at this quadrant again and up against the wall, please.
Madam Ambassador.
Sorry.
Elizabeth with the Armenian National Committee. Question for you with regards to the stated goals of developing democracy, developing the economy in Armenia, certainly, and taking on, let's say, the poverty issues and whatnot there and human rights. We see a double standard emerging in that area. We see that we're talking about ending poverty, but we freeze MCC funding for the rural communities.
Right.
We talk about the democratic benchmarks with regards to MCC funding overall, and yet when we see neighboring countries not meeting those benchmarks, we see that their funds aren't being reduced, and in fact Armenia's is. And then on top of all of this, we see overall, when we're talking about the promotion of human rights in the region, we see, of course, as you mentioned, President Obama breaking his pledge to properly acknowledge the Armenian genocide and not speaking honestly about that. What does that, first of all, how does that affect your ability to be a credible representative of U.S. aspirations in the region? And secondly, why the double standard in general?
Thank you very much. Did everybody hear that?
Did you hear that? Okay, very good. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. You're not going to be surprised that I don't believe we do have a double standard, and I'd like to address why I think that's the case. First of all, with regard to the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and I apologize in advance, especially to those of you who have heard me answer this question before, but it's going to be sort of a lengthy response because I think you've raised an important issue. And with regard to the Millennium Challenge, this, and I know we have at least one representative of MCC in the room, MCC was established a number of years ago as a different kind of U.S. assistance program. It was established with the philosophy that assistance is most effective when it is given to countries that maintain certain policies with regard to ruling justly, which are the democracy issues that you were talking about, with regard to investing in its people, which are things like, is a country putting its own money against education of girls? Is a country putting money against healthcare issues and so forth? And then the third category is economic freedoms. So are the monetary and fiscal policies good ones, or are they not? So those are the three categories. MCC looks at those categories, and countries must pass half of those. There are 16 indicators overall. Countries must pass half of them, and in addition must also pass, and this is a hard kind of earmark, if you will, or indicator that Congress has established, which is control of corruption. And so several years ago, in September of 2006, Armenia met those indicators, and we signed, I think actually Ambassador Evans signed, a compact with the government of Armenia. And the compact is exactly that. The understanding or the agreement was that the U.S. government would provide $236 million of assistance directly to the Armenian budget. And we don't usually do that, as some of you probably know, because we're concerned about how those kinds of funds would be used. But because of the good policies, again, the Millennium Challenge is a very different kind of assistance program. So in exchange for that investment in Armenia, the government of Armenia agreed to implement programs of its own choosing, and also to maintain those standards. And the program, as you may know, but perhaps not everybody does, the program that the government of Armenia established was the refurbishment of rural roads, an irrigation program refurbishing rural canals, and training farmers. Fast forward to the elections, the presidential elections last February, which concerned the U.S. government, concerned the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and I'm sure concerned many of the people in this room as well. Then there was the March violence, the deaths of 10 individuals, and the way in which the Armenian government handled that challenge. And there ensued with the corporation, as well as with the United States government, a discussion as to how Armenia was handling that. In June of last year, that's June of 2008, the board, the Millennium Challenge Board, which is a group of, it's made up of 4 government officials, headed up by the Secretary of State, and 4 private individuals, like many of the people in this room. The board was concerned that the trends in Armenia were not going in the right direction. And so it took a decision last June to put an administrative hold on the roads portion of that assistance to Armenia. The other 2 portions, the irrigation project, the farmer training project, continues. It has never been ceased, and it continues to this day. The roads program, as I said, was halted last June because the board felt it was important to send a signal to Armenia that it wasn't maintaining its part of the bargain, and that it needed to change the trend of where it was going. Every 3 months the board meets, and it continued to meet all over the last 12 months. And the board continued to be concerned about the direction in which Armenia was going. And this June, the board had yet another meeting in its series of meetings. It didn't take any decisions. The status quo just continues. But obviously there was a press release which I think caught the eye of many of the people in this room. So we'll have to see where this goes. I can tell you, certainly speaking for the State Department, that we're committed to continuing that project, even if we need to search to find other funds and work with Congress to find other funds to build those roads. But we need Armenia to keep its end of the bargain. You also raised the issue of rural poor, and that is, I'm sure you travel a lot to Armenia. Obviously, I get out as much as I possibly can, and that's an issue that really concerns me as well. And what we've done is we've tried to shift some of our funds to provide sort of real-time support to people in rural areas. We've also supported the request of the international financial institutions. We are the largest shareholder in the IMF, the World Bank, and ADB. And so we have supported those institutions in lending, providing concessionary loans to the people of Armenia. And some of that, not only does it go to many of the same kind of projects actually that MCC is working on, but also directly to budget support to help with schools and healthcare and things like that. Other countries. In terms of other countries in the region, Azerbaijan, as some of you may know, does not have a Millennium Challenge Corporation program. It did not qualify and has not qualified. Georgia, which is probably the other country that you're talking about, clearly Georgia also has challenges, as I think every country in the region does. However, when the board looks at Georgia's performance, the trends appear to be going in the right direction. Georgia, like Armenia, also